Okay, so now what happened this afternoon? You were having a little bit of healthy eating tips with Anya and Joanna. Then we went to the financials. So we fixed or trying to help you some tips on your financials. And now we are going to chill because we are going to a retreat. So let's see what this group has to say. It's a beautiful group of people, diverse as every single panel in this beautiful summit. We had 38 panels and all of them are live besides the first one that we had to record. So we are putting a lot of effort here to bring you a lot of value. So we see you in the engagement, see you in the chats, give a lot of encouragement, a lot of questions. We appreciate it, even if you are watching this later and not live right now. Put your questions. The speakers will be coming back and answering everything in the next 1 week. So without further ado, let's start this beautiful session about retreats diversity. They will explain you perfectly. I will be bringing up Nishit, who is a very dear friend, bringing some friends. So let's bring up Nishit. Hi, Nishit. How are you today?
Hey Andrea, I'm so good. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, all the time. I mean, it has been a beautiful journey with you in the last few years. I think you have been coming from year 2, right? If I remember well.
Yeah, here too. Yeah,
Yeah, year
yeah,
2. So third years in a row. Thank you so much for
yeah.
being here. And then I will be bringing up another familiar phrase, Paili. Paili is also with us for a few years. Hi, Paili. How are you here?
I'm good. Good to be back.
Yes, thank you so much for supporting this panel,
Yeah,
and I'm looking
yeah.
forward to your
It just showed
perspective.
another year has passed. Time passes so fast.
So fast, right? We meet 1 year at the summit. Good to catch up with everyone.
That's right.
Okay, and we have two newbies. We had a lot of first timers, and I have to say they have been amazing. We had the most professional beginners beginners on the screen this year, and I'm really, really super excited about the two new beginners here, at least beginners at the GES. So Zoya is coming up. Hi Zoya, how are you today?
Hello, I'm good. I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, I'm looking forward to discussing this amazing session that we have here today.
Thank you so much. And then last but not least, Karine. Hi Karine, how are you today?
Hi, Andrea. I'm doing very well and thank you for having me. Super excited about the discussion.
Me too. I can't wait. So I will go backstage, have a beautiful session, Nishit, and I will be back around 45 minutes. Enjoy.
Hey, thanks, Andrea, and hey, welcome everyone. So, just to give a little bit of background of how this session came to be, just so that everyone has a context, like what is this thing of designing transformational retreats, but then there's diversity in it and modeling culture and all these different things that's happening, and I think. Uh, Partly this came to be because we run retreats around the world, and one of the biggest questions that people ask is how do we do this, and how do you sort of create transformation through building all this retreat? And this is the conversation that I was having with Andrea, and they go like, okay, let's just do a session on that so everyone can get some inputs from it. And fundamentally, the idea for us to discuss right now is because mostly all of us are from different culture, all four of us. Uh, Considering, I mean, let's just assume Zoya grew up in Dubai, so we'll just consider that as a different culture. And we are all from a different culture, and fundamentally to me that's one of the biggest foundation in creating transformation. It could be in terms of retreat, it could be in terms of your coaching practice, it could be in terms of your training, it could be in terms of anything, but bringing in that diversity, and that allows you to create more richness and create more awareness. So that's something that all four of us will discuss today. And hopefully, I think we can bring some powerful insights so that people can take their level of creating transformation through diversity to the next level. Yeah, so these are my initial thoughts. You guys have anything to add? Would you like to add?
I would just say we cannot escape, especially after COVID. Yeah, our life has been like on the screen, and when we are on the screen, it's global. Yeah, there's no more walls. So we have
Yes.
to be so sensitive about diversity.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like we said, right? The world is slowly coming together. And so being sensitive to diversity is important because it sort of creates that oneness. We're all becoming closer and closer together.
That's right.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's a perfect, I mean, in a nutshell, all of us being uh, from different cultures, even I would say Nishit and I, in terms of there's so many cultures within cultures. So even in a country like India, there's different regions, different religions. So even that way, we are so diverse in that sense. Is really awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I think for me, I mean, diversity, how we are different, what's the difference that makes the difference in our cultures, but also knowing we're all human beings. And at the end of the day, yeah, we're all coming from the same place and looking for sameness or, yeah, it's both. And I'm excited about exploring both.
Mm.
Great. So I thought I could share why, modeling diverse culture can create very strong transformation and set that as a frame, and then I can bring up some of the questions that all of us can explore. But fundamentally, the idea is that as humans, we live from our own limited view of the world. So we've grown up in certain environment, we have a certain level of upbringing, and we have certain kind of experiences as we grow up, and that shapes our map of the world. But that's just like a tiny, tiny fragment of what the world is. So our awareness is just limited. I mean, and that's just human, right? That's true for everyone. So we can't potentially be aware of everything. So we've created our limited view of the world, and we live in that limited view of the world. And fundamentally, to me, the way I define transformation is that when you become aware of new things, new patterns, new structures, just discover something new about yourself that creates that insight and wisdom, uh, that creates transformation. Because if you hear something that you already knew that, right? So there's not no awareness in that. And so, coming from the place of that, we all come from a different culture, but our upbringing is more or less similar. And so, one of the most powerful ways to create that awareness, or one of the most powerful ways to, move outside of our limited view of the world, is to step into a different culture, and step into how different people do different things, and that sort of goes like so. Just to give you a quick example on this, is when I first went to Switzerland, and I met Karen, for example, and it's just the way of living and the way of looking at things was so different from me being in India. In India, where everything was just easy and you can get anything at any time. And so, what I would like to call it as, we had a lot of choice and very in time thinking. Whereas when I was in Switzerland, I learned it the hard way, that one day in the night I didn't have food to eat because I didn't plan for it, because you can't just get anything anytime. But that brought new awareness, that created that, okay, you know what? In a new culture, developing that through time thinking, that is such an important thing. Uh, so stepping into different culture and then modeling those cultures, noticing what's really good about that culture, what's really excellent about that, can set a really great foundation for creating the transformation, because more and more awareness can come from that. And that becomes then an example of retreats, and that's why we sort of run retreats in different cultures, in different parts of the world. So the question is that, then how can modeling different culture create that
Mm.
awareness for you guys? Or if you have any more thoughts to add on that as well.
Mm, mm, mm. What I have in mind, all of us has got different needs or different wants or different desire. So if you were to look at the question that is being posted right now, two different camps has got two different perspective or two different needs and desire. So one of the way to be able to live in peace, if we could just step into the other person's world and look at things from their perspective, you know, we then perhaps are able to show more empathy why they are coming, doing what, why they are doing what they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But definitely both perspective has got their valid point. Why am I fighting? Why am I killing? Yeah. And they are just there to protect their country or protect their citizen. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would share in terms of the question that that's why the topic that we said today is modeling culture, and which is to see seeing excellence in difference. You know, so if someone's thinking about something different than you, then respecting
Mm,
that and accepting that, rather
mm,
than going that your way of thinking is wrong and my way of thinking is right, and that's what brings conflicts and wars, because what basically everyone's doing is protecting their own map of the world, what they think is the right way to live, what they think is. And I feel that can change and fully transform if just people started, instead of going I'm right, going like I accept you for who you are, and start learning from each other, start learning from that difference, rather than start going like, oh, you are different than me, so you're not doing it right, so to speak.
yeah.
And I feel like, it's exactly what you shared, Nishan, about expanding the awareness and bringing things to awareness. And I mean, often I love traveling, I love exploring, finding out new things about cultures. And it's also about learning about myself and expanding, but reconnecting somehow, that's within me. I might not have explored it that often or in that way or in a similar context. Um, with my upbringing in my the culture where I live, but it's somewhere within me, and like bringing that to awareness is, I think, what creates that transformation then. And second thing I
Mm,
wanted to share is like just one example of what really stood out for me. And I've been working now with Indians for so many years, and you know in Europe, and there's a lot of good things and advantages also in that we are like a culture of individuals. So individualism is very important, but what stood really out for me, like working together, traveling in Indian culture, is that sense of community and others focus. And it was so fascinating for me to think about, and especially when you think about a retreat, you know instead of like everyone by themselves having their grow, it's important as well, grow as an individual in a retreat, but bringing that layer of community and others focus and growth as a whole system to a retreat makes such a huge difference. And that's definitely one of the huge insights I had personally from Indian culture, which is so helpful to bring that into a transformational retreat.
mm,
Yeah, I would also add to this in terms of I feel like as soon as we start becoming aware of it, instantly what happens is there's that open mindedness that also comes into play, where we're not only looking at it as like a tunnel vision, but it's like a whole peripheral vision that opens up, and we're able to absorb and understand other cultures. Coming from my experience of so I studied in the Middle East for a couple of years, and just the way everything is, I would say, so safe and secure. And I was just wondering, okay, where does that come from? And there are so many values and beliefs in terms of, okay, this is how our country should be or how our region should be. And then bringing that to retreats and thinking, okay, if it can be done in that context, then bringing it to something like a transformational retreat uh, is very amazing, because then we're bringing these uh, excellent aspects of all cultures and bringing it in one place to experience all of it. So I feel like that open mindedness is one of the consequences of then having that awareness.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Until we are exposed to it, we don't know what we are capable of. So sometimes it may caught us by surprise, but after that we learn to adjust, adapt, being flexible. And that's, I think, what is really required, when we are in a diverse culture coming together in a retreat. Yeah. We really hope that it can bring out the best in us.
Yes. I mean, sort of, we are a representation of that, right? We are all from diverse culture being part of this session and exploring our thoughts. So that's an example of just how different thoughts we can have and what different gifts that we can bring to the conversation for us, for the world, for everyone else.
Right.
Okay.
I would also say there is like stepping outside of one's comfort zone when we are trying to explore and understand other cultures. Like there could be a resistance to, oh, maybe we don't do it the way it's done in a different country or culture. But then I feel like it's just adding to a person's growth when we are able to accept without judgment and just be in that uh, childlike state of, yeah, let all the information and learning come to me. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's also something that's really important in experiencing that transformation from modeling these cultures.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then while we adjust, adapt, we should not also lose ourselves. We still needs to be authentic with ourselves, because we are still us. We are still the. So it's also so important that we know ourselves, we know our values.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I find it also interesting, with modeling. And at the first sight, it might look like, oh, there's so many differences. There's so many things that are not the same at all. But really asking what's beyond, what's really the underlying structure, where is this coming from? What what's behind that? And often that really helps me to connect and kind of maybe on a, let's say, on a behavior level, how someone from a different culture behaves, I don't fully understand, but really asking questions and asking where is that coming from, then suddenly I can connect and I can relate to it,
Mm,
let's say on a very, yeah, like bigger picture point of view. And for me what really helps is like looking for that sameness, maybe not in context exactly, but the structure, where is that sameness in structure, and then immediately I can relate and connect with it. And that creates expansion. It's still authentic, it's still who I am, but it just brings a different way of looking at that same structure.
mm, mm. That's so true, because as a psychologist myself, as a counselor, at the end of it all my clients are looking for the same thing. They are looking for love, they are looking for acceptance, they are looking for peace, they are looking for a sense of belongingness. So whatever we do, yes, we may have done it differently, but there is still this point at the core of us. We are looking perhaps still the same way, because we are human beings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a funny example where at the beginning I was struggling a little bit, and it might be a little bit of generalization. Of course, it's not true for everyone, but I would say quite often I experience that from Indian culture that people tend to not say no to things. So when you ask them for a favor or anything to do, it's quite well known here that Indians would always say yes to things. Whereas, like me personally, or often Swiss people, it takes quite a lot to commit to something, right? You would
Mm,
rather say no first, and then maybe you reflect, and after a couple of times, then you start to think, maybe I could. But that's such a different. I don't know how to deal with that saying yes to everything. But then I was really chunking it up for myself and asking, where is that coming from? And you know what I found out? It's really interesting. I realized both of the behaviors are coming from not wanting to disappoint the other person. It's one element.
mm,
Of course, there's more to it, but Indians who
yeah,
don't take no, they don't want. They want to be open. They want to respect. They want to not
yeah,
disappoint the other person. Whereas the Swiss person, like me, has exactly the same purpose. I don't want to say yes to something which I'm not fully sure if I can if I can keep that promise. So I would rather say no to it. But at the end of the day, we have the same intention, and that was
yeah,
a huge insight. Just to understand we have a complete opposite behavior, but we actually, that's the same thing behind that, the same intention behind.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you guys said, right? That if we chunk it up enough, like if we ask this question, that what's behind what we are doing or what our behavior is from different culture, but I feel like if we chunk it up enough, eventually it is all going to be the same thing. Like you said, that it is about acceptance. Yes, it is about being loved. It is about fulfillment and happiness. And I think a lot of actions and behavior are a reflection of people wanting to get there. But I think, like, at a very simplest level, if just the world understood that we all want the same thing, and not focus so much on the behavior, but actually the intention, the behavior can start changing
Yes.
uh, and start shifting.
Yep.
Hmm. So, sort of like bringing that to what we're speaking about, right? Building transformational retreats. And to imagine that when people get to experience that, I mean, part of me just feels like that sometimes if there are people from different cultures in the retreat, like as a facilitator, our job is done. We don't even need to do more. They as well just learn and work with each other. But imagine that people start to understand that eventually we all have similarity, but we all are looking for that common intention, that shared vision or that shared purpose is there, and that creates such a different level of transformation, and that creates such a different level of shift, and then that can go to the world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I wonder what would make people, if there's ever a retreat that called transformational retreat, what would make, a person join this diverse culture transformational retreat? What are they looking for?
I mean, from our experience, since I've been running these retreats for 10 years, 10, 12 years now in different parts of the world. And when we just focus on diversity at the most fundamental level, I think one is people join for themselves because they want to learn and grow. And people are excited to meet other people from different parts of the world because there's so much to learn from each other and
Yeah.
there's so much to experience from each other. Uh, I remember I had this one particular experience where I had a participant who was from Colombia, and so she had such a different way of thinking about life and about world, such openness, uh, and such acceptance. Like she saw a lot of positivity in everything. And so there was this one place where I had a challenge, and I remember that I was thinking so much about it. There's a challenge. This is what's going to happen. This is going to happen. I don't know what's going to work. And she just came to me and said, "Huh? That's a challenge. That's like normal for us in Colombia. That's just normal." And that got me thinking, right? It's interesting that something that's such a big of an issue, a challenge, a limitation for me, isn't that for her? Isn't that i- like she was in a different culture where the same thing wasn't a challenge, it's just something expected. So I obviously learned, and that's where I got the insight that I'm creating this challenge in my mind. It isn't actually there. It's the way I'm thinking about it that's creating this challenge. And to me, that was such a powerful moment. That was the time that I realized that, what, it's just, it's just the way I'm thinking about it. And if I can learn and model different cultures, I can learn so much about so many different things from so many different parts of the world. And that to me was transformation. So it's just
Yeah.
a problem for me. What I think is a problem may not be a problem for someone else, and that's where learning happens. And same
That's
thing, if it's something is a challenge for someone, may not be the same way, or there is an easier way for us to deal with it. Like I know that because I spend so much time in Switzerland, there are a lot of things that are considered as challenge in Switzerland. To me in India, that's like, really? Okay, for half an hour you don't have electricity. That's okay. Yeah,
true. So true.
and also
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and also to kind of just go and look at the word retreat, right? Why do we say retreat and not a training program or not a training session or something like that? We say retreat because It's a space. We create a space. We go to a retreat. The word itself defines it at it's a different space. And the
Mm,
space doesn't just have to be environment. The space is also people. People also create it. And to me, actually, people create retreat a lot more than the space or the environment. So having people from different cultures as a part of your retreat is one of the most transformational things that can ever happen.
yeah. Once I was in a so-called retreat, I was like a month there with people over 30 different countries. Yeah, and my
Wow.
roommate is really from a different country, and we have to stay together for a month. That was really challenging. Yeah. But I didn't know it's a challenge for her until she make it an issue.
Yeah.
So I think I would have learned, oh, me, because I'm a night owl, she's not. So I would be working through the night, and just me clicking, or or even if I off the light and just me working in the dark, it still affects her sleep.
Yeah.
So in a way, it was like, oh, I'm chased out from my room because then I have to, do my work outside the hall. Yeah. So I think I
Yeah.
appreciate her from saying it out. Otherwise, she may not be authentic to herself, and it disturb her sleep, and then it will disturb her day. Yeah. So in my culture, one of the thing is, we don't like conflict. We just suck it up. We will not say it out. Yeah. It's just like how I think about the part where we will just say yes, we will not say no yet. So it's like even if we are
Yeah.
not happy, we don't say anything, but we have the same intention. We want peace, we want harmony.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I also believe that it's like expanding our options. So even taking the examples you guys have shared, one culture is coming at it from one way and the other culture is coming at it from a different way. And like we mentioned, it's important to have the awareness that the intention is most likely the same when we keep chunking it up. So when we look at it in terms of options, if I'm coming to a retreat, I will most likely have a personal outcome for myself. But when I notice someone from another culture having a completely different point of view or different way of approaching it, then I feel like it just adds to my options and I have more flexibility in that sense that, hey, this is also one way I could approach this goal that I have or challenge that I have for myself. So, Nishit, what you shared about, people creating that space in a retreat, I feel like that's very true in that sense for me as well.
Yeah. So if we sort of break down this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what we are speaking about is building transformational retreat. And one of the key elements of building a retreat to me is definitely identification, right? Our ability to identify with others' thoughts and patterns. So fundamentally, what is identification, right? Identification is, which basically says that if you notice something in someone else, if you notice a pattern, if you notice a structure, if you recognize an excellence in someone else, then at some level it's true for you as well. Uh, and at some level, it also works for you. I usually like to give this really great alien example for this. Where the example is that imagine if an alien came down from Mars there and they saw a cup of coffee, they will never be able to recognize that's a cup of coffee. They won't know it uh, unless they experience it and someone tells them that that's a cup of coffee. So you can't know something or you can't identify with something unless you have an experience of it yourself. And so identification becomes such a key factor. So which basically means that if I see confidence in someone else, then that means that at some level I am confident. If I see a certain pattern in someone else, in some level I have it, both good and bad. If I see someone's annoying, then at some level I'm annoying as well. Uh, and identification becomes such a key part in modeling diversity because our ability to identify, or sometimes we say empathy, right? Our ability to have empathy towards the difference but fundamentally operating from the foundation that, if someone's different from us, and if you're able to recognize that, then in some level it's not that different. At some level, it is still true for you. And often the question that we ask is that if you notice something in someone else, then how is that true for you? How is that true for me, uh, specifically? And I feel like identification is one of the most fundamental thing that's important in accepting the difference, or modeling diversity, or modeling different cultures, because it's only when we are able to identify with others and ask ourselves that how is this true for me as well, how am I exhibiting this behavior, or how am I living this identity. uh, that's when the true modeling and acceptance happens. It's what you said, so that's what happens a lot in retreats, right? That if someone shares a different point of view, suddenly opens up for you, and you are able to identify that, you are able to go with that and go like, okay, yeah, that makes so much sense for me. uh, I didn't think about this earlier, but now that you've shared it, it's such an amazing insight or amazing transformation. And it's like what the comment says right now, right? That we discover something new when we're in a different context. Uh, so we discover something from different point of view and different perspectives, which I didn't know about, and that creates such a foundational level uh, to building retreats.
Mm. Yeah. What would be some tips, yeah, for cross-cultural communication? Because in order to identify, we need to be able to converse or communicate in a way that we can relate and connect. I know one
Yeah.
way definitely conflict has to happen first so that we can understand each other better. Is there a way that, through all your experiences, how we can bypass the conflict? We can discuss it in such a way that, oh, okay, we can help each other identify the differences. Because I like what Corinne said earlier. What's the difference that makes the difference?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, I mainly work with NLP, and to
Mm,
me, in NLP, there is a specific way of communication called clean language, which
mm,
fundamentally says that you speak with someone without influencing them. So you be
mm,
clean about it, because our language is very influential. Even when I say our language is influential, that itself is, I'm sort of assuming that I'm
mm,
speaking for all of us, because I'm saying our. So that itself is I'm influencing right now. And I feel like when we work with different cultures, being clean about it and coming from the place of curiosity is, I think, one of the great ways to communicate. Uh, I, I remember, and coming from the place of non-assumption,
mm,
not assuming, because I remember I once had an experience where I went to a different place in India, and they had a certain way of speaking, which was
mm,
very different from me. So when they spoke about it in a specific way, to me it felt rude. To me, it just felt like everyone's just so rude here, because they're just, how can they not have respect? How can they just speak this way? It's only after being there for a day or two I realized, oh, okay, this is just how they speak. They don't mean to be rude, or they don't mean to be ill-intentional. They just spoke differently, and I assume that however they spoke, in my limited map of the world, and that's why I keep saying limited, right? Because in my map of the world, that meant something, but that wasn't actually the meaning that was there. So I created that meaning. I operated from my own point of view. I operated from my own map of the world, and that at initially I was like, everyone's rude. I don't want to be here. I'm ready to leave. I will not stay here. But later I realized that it wasn't. It wasn't rude. And so, not having assumptions about what something means is such an important way to communicate with a different culture, and being clean about it, coming from a place of curiosity, so that, when someone says something, just asking them, hey, what do you mean by that? What's going on? What do you mean when you say this? So that I can understand about that more.
mm,
I think also for me, and also coming from NLP, like coming with the mindset of no matter what someone shares or how someone behaves, or yeah, how much different it is from me, like having the belief of that there's a positive intention behind every
Mm,
behavior makes
mm,
such a difference. So
mm,
imagine in a conflict, imagine in an argument, taking on that belief, okay, no matter what the disagreement is, the other person has a positive intention behind, and then asking first, maybe I can figure it out myself, what that positive intention, or even ask that question to the other person, what's important about this, where is this coming from, very very often builds that foundation or ground for, yeah, finding the commonalities and identifying with each other.
mm,
Yeah, I would
mm,
second whatever Nishad and Karan have shared. Um, Even from my own experience of interacting with someone who's from a different culture, I think just the way I operate that really helps me is I, for me, it's like I'm going to learn something new because this is someone from a completely new place, a new culture and context. So I never really have that, I would say, mindset of assumption and judgment. So whatever they say, I'm taking that in, and then I can check for myself. Okay, does this work for me? Their way of living or their way of operating in this certain context. So I feel like instead of jumping to okay, no, this is wrong and this doesn't work for me, we can always test it out and check like okay, this is a different point of view, and I feel like that really helps me with communicating with someone from a different culture is that just come from a space of learning that this is going to be some new experience that I'm going to have, and not labeling it into something that could be unresourceful for me.
yeah. So I guess we are all on the same page in terms of, we can only learn when we are curious. Yeah. And then when we have different opinion, it's like they are coming from a good space. Every behavior has got good intention. So for me would be more of like, practice active listening. Yeah. For
Yes.
me to listen, that means the person has to talk. For the person to talk, I have to ask questions. So I have to be curious myself in order to be able to ask questions and explore what's that about. Yeah. So then,
Yeah. Great. Yes. So maybe before Andrea comes and starts kicking us out, we can do a quick sort of recap of so at the end of this conversation, how do we build transformational retreat, right? What's come out of this as insights and thoughts and ideas, and by modeling diverse cultures. And I think some of the things is just to do the recap of, so to build transformational retreat, and environment is such a big part of it. And if you set up an environment in a different culture, you have the opportunity to model so much there that creates a lot of learning experiences. I think that, and then having the foundation of identification, that setting identification as a frame, because once you set up identification as a frame from the retreat, then the learning can happen naturally. Transformation and awareness can just happen automatically and naturally on their own. Of course, a big part of this is accepting the difference, and like all of us discussed, coming from the place of that we all have common positive intention. If you really chunk it up, then eventually it is about acceptance and love and belonging, and in a way consciously practicing active listening, or it's similar in NLP. We have clean language, which is similar, coming from the place of curiosity. So as someone who's building retreats, setting up that space, that how can you set up space where all the people who are part of the retreat are curious about everything that's going on, are they curious about learning from each other, and that's where I think fundamentally setting the space for excellence, paying attention to the excellence, uh, rather than paying attention to, oh, that's not good, or that's not working. That's not how I would do it, and so on. So I feel like bringing all of these elements together creates such a fundamental level of transformation when you run a retreat. And like I said, our context today that we're speaking about is in terms of retreat, but all of this is applicable in any setting, in any group of people coming together. And sort of
Mm,
this is also an example for GES. I mean, this summit as well, right? Because Andre always manages to bring all these amazing people from different cultures. I mean, this time it's 30, 36 countries, and everyone can get to learn from these different cultures and different thoughts and different perspectives. And that brings so much more awareness uh, than coming from a singular culture. And that's what they say as a wisdom, right? Wisdom is when you have multiple perspective, not just multiple choices. So I guess these are some great ways to implement and integrate into designing, building retreats, and making sure that there is diversity in it, which creates that
mm, mm,
richness and that creates that transformation.
mm,
Yeah, I think that's very very beautifully summarized. I totally agree, and I think, I mean, just to add on that, creating that retreat, us being the facilitator of it, being an example. It's not something we just theoretically bring and want participants to experience, but us being the example of being that attentive listener, about identifying with our participants, with the environment, and that brings so much more of a holistic and embodied experience. So bringing that level of embodiment and applying to self, we call it in NLP. So um, me being the example as a facilitator, and then everyone else in the group, all the participants, can also model that from me. They see that as an example. So that embodiment, holistic, being an example for me is a really crucial part to
mm,
bring that transformation in the retreat.
mm, mm. For me to join a multicultural retreat, I would really want to learn about the other culture. One of the things I would appreciate if, let's say, there is also a display of, the different cultural art piece, or sharing of their food, or even having cultural night where we dress in our national costume, just to expose ourselves, you know. And I thought that would really enrich each other's awareness and understanding or appreciation about another culture. Because every culture
Yeah,
is beautiful. Yeah. So I would
yeah,
really love to see those literal display of art piece or symbols, decoration, food,
yeah. It's like you said earlier, right? It is also about holding on to our values and our authenticity. So
Yeah,
also expressing our culture and
yeah,
learning from others.
yes. That's it.
Yeah, and then this becomes so much of a holistic experience. Like even right now, as all of us are speaking from different parts of the world, different cultures, and then taking this to a retreat, adding the element of a different environment to it, and then adding elements of our own cultures, keeping our own authenticity. I feel like it's so much of a holistic experience that really adds to the transformational aspect of building such a retreat.
Yeah.
Mm,
I mean, one of the things that I would love to happen is for everyone who is watching this or gonna watch this in future, in the coming days, to just share it in the comment. One interesting thing that they've learned from a different culture, which made a difference. Because I feel like if everyone shares that, imagine there's so much to
mm,
learn from it. Just read those comments and we can identify with that and we can learn from them. We could even learn something that probably we haven't experienced it yet. Will be such a great activity and exercise. So everyone who's going to watch this, if you've taken time out to watch this, then please, yeah, just share that with all of us, and everyone can learn from what you are sharing and what you're bringing
mm,
as well.
mm. That's a nice way to end it. Probably we can share, what is one unique thing about our own culture that we want to share to the world. Maybe you should start with us, by us role modeling. So for me in
Absolutely.
Malaysia, yeah, for me in Malaysia, food is the number one thing. So I would really love for all of us to taste nasi lemak. Nasi lemak is rice in coconut oil. So the fragrance is really so good, you know. And yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that everyone should have a taste of nasi lemak.
Great. I'm excited. I'll make travel plans now. Good. All right.
I
Zaya, do
could
you
go
want to?
next. Yeah, yeah. For me, one of the things growing up in, I would say, Hyderabad in India as well, there's a lot of Islamic culture there. So during the month of Ramzan, there's a lot of self restraint and self control that is a big value uh, for that culture. So just staying away from, food or the things we indulge in, I feel having that in all contexts where we can control ourselves from things that we do not want could be really useful. So I feel like that's a value that is very useful to model of self control.
Mm.
Great.
Hmm.
Karin?
I think, yeah, I'm thinking. So I think one of the things that really stand out for me and that I appreciate so much all the time when I travel, and I love traveling, but there's a couple of things when I come back which, yeah, normally I take for granted. And I believe in Swiss culture, it's very, very common that your words are in line with your actions.
Mm.
So what you say you're gonna do is what actually gonna happen. So like really having that strong, strong commitment
Mm.
between communication, between promises and actual behavior. So just imagine if in the whole world, anyone who promises, anyone who tells you, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and it will actually really happen if you can trust 100%. I feel like that would make a big difference. So that's probably what I would bring.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'll quickly share. I think for me, one of the important things that stand out from Indian culture is community and how people show up for each other. It's such a great way of just being there for each other and showing up. And then there's lots of different things that have showed up in different communities as well. So if Andrea showed up, that means it's time to stop. Yeah, but I'd say I'd just wrap this up very quickly by just saying that if you guys can pick one thing, right, to model from different culture, and then just share it with all of us, and we'll share it as well. And I think that would be a great way to wrap this session up.
Mm.
Thank you so much.
And we already started. It's very nice. We saw Maggie Me, and that Ashwin is saying people in Africa are very hardworking. Of course, they had so much struggle, and I feel the same. Like when I see them, because I invited a lot of people from Africa in the upcoming years. Even back, we started with one person, and then more people are coming. Very, very talented young people, so clever, so amazing insights. And I see the hunger, the anger and the hunger, and this anger that has been there for generations, making them so much more hungrier and more curious. And the power that is coming through their words, it's
Mm.
much more, how to say that? I am always getting emotional when I see that. It's like coming to you with the whole feeling of generations of suffering inside, and it just takes you over. You cannot do anything else, just enjoy it and to embrace it, and to you want to do it also. I don't know whether you had this feeling before, but I think that's something that I got from them. It's
Mm.
beautiful.
Yeah, Andrea, I'm just curious, which culture do you embrace yourself or you can identify yourself with? Because they are so multicultural.
You mean me?
Yeah, you have been in this part of the world for the longest time.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I always say to people, and I think I told it to someone also, that I think my ancestors must have been Indians, because every time I'm listening to Indian music, my head goes like this, and in a shock sometimes people are, "What are you doing, Andrea?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And then I love Indian food, and I tried meditation, and the only meditation music that works for me, it's Indian yoga meditation. I don't know. So that's something that I say that I identify with. Of course, I have my Hungarian part, but it's very interestingly, they say Hungarians are complaining a lot. And I can say that from this perspective, I don't feel I'm Hungarian. And I started the same way, like Karin said, I was doing the research in my family, and it revealed that my grandparents on my father's side, they're Slovakian. And when I met my Slovakian relatives in Slovakia, and I talked to them, the sister of my grandfather, well, if you had seen a bubbly, happy person at 80 years, almost not seeing, hardly walking, um, I don't know. So I totally found and identified myself that I'm a Slovakian. I'm not really Hungarian. So it's an interesting question. Thank you for asking, Bailey.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for this panel. We have to log out. I would let you talk more, because I don't know, every single panel, just as you said, Nishit, bringing up beautiful insights, so colorful co-creation of the moment. You will never have these panels
Mhm.
again, because the combination of the people and the moment and the mood that you are in, the current life that you are in today, your circumstances, your environment will never be the same. So all these
Yes.
things that we create together, it's a unique creation of the moment. And I'm just amazed. It's beautiful to watch what you have been creating here. It's not me. I'm just providing the platform. Maybe I provide a spark, but it's all the 120 people who are coming here and showing up, who are creating the magic. So that's all. That's my take on this. And thank you so much for doing this beautiful panel and giving your insights to the GES 2023.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
us. Thank you for this
Thank you.
platform.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I will be closing the panel. If you have been watching now, please still add your comments. If you watch later, same applies, because the speakers will be rewatching this later in the following 1 week. And if they find questions or your comments about your cultures, I'm sure Nishit will come back. He loves to study people. So modeling people is the best way to grow. Thank you so much for being here. Enjoy your evening, afternoon, wherever you are in the world, and see you at the next session very, very soon. We will be talking about metaverse, jumping into a very, very different topic. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Beautiful
Thank you.
afternoon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.